Joining us now, the author of the #1 bestseller, The Russian Hoax, The Illicit Scheme to Clear Hillary Clinton and Frame Donald Trump, Greg Jarrett, along with investigative reporter, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. Sarah, we begin with you. John Solomon's report from tonight. This is now concrete evidence. The FBI was told everything about Christopher Steele, who paid for the Russian dirt dossier lies, and they then used it anyway to spy, in spite of what James Comey says.
Well, it was to spy. And what's worse, Sean, is the fact that the FBI was well aware of what Christopher Steele was up to, what he was doing. The fact that Christopher Steele himself had admitted to Kavalak, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State at the time, that he was going to release this information before the election. This was certainly to target then candidate Trump and eventually President Trump. Because remember, after they get the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Warrant to spy on Carter Page, which they did not disclose to the courts all the information that they had and where this information came from, and the fact that half of it was lies, they continued to spy on Carter Page, renewing it for 4 times during 2016 and throughout 2017, all the way until the fall, the last one actually being signed by Rod Rosenstein. So what John broke here is so significant and so important, it's going to unleash the avalanche, because now they're going to have to explain why they did this. And it is absolutely spying when you concoct a tale to actually look into other people's emails, listen into their telephone conversations, and try to set up a duly elected president of the United States.
The avalanche that I keep saying coming cascading down, Greg Jarrett, this is but a small part. We have, of course, the Inspector General's report on FISA abuse. We have now the Attorney General that will look into Hillary's rigged investigation. We'll have the Huber report on leaked materials. We will have 302s. We will have Gang of 8. We will have the FISA applications themselves. Mueller's dead. Whether people can face the truth or not, now, Act 2, the curtain is up.
And John's documentary evidence now proves conclusively that James Comey was lying to a FISA court. And, of course, tonight on CNN, you played the clip when he said he went by the book. That's also a lie to the American public. You know, James Comey is now swinging these wild haymakers because he knows that very soon he's going down on the canvas for a 10 count. He is in deep, serious legal jeopardy for a number of things. Lying to a FISA court, leaking government documents that he stole, starting an investigation without credible evidence, spying on the Trump campaign, and making false statements to Congress. I hope he saved all of the money he made from that phony book of his talking about liars and lying people, because he's going to need the money for his defense team.
Greg Jarrett, remind me to never piss you off, because that was a pretty damning indictment. That's why you had the #1 bestseller in the country for weeks. All right, thank you both. Great work, both of you.
Sources confirming to us tonight that the Justice Department's Inspector General is investigating how on earth a piece of opposition research bought and paid for by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign was used to get a surveillance warrant to spy on an innocent American. What's more, we're learning that the application to get that warrant from the FISA court did not disclose who was funding that research. So, no mention of any kind of bias. And we know it was biased, right? Because it was opposition research bought and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. The FBI used that, never bothered to verify it, presented it to a judge as though it was their own research, and got that warrant to spy on an American. I mean, this is so above and beyond the outrageous. I don't care, okay? I don't care what party you're in or which way you lean. I don't care how much you hate Donald Trump and love Hillary Clinton or vice versa. This is malpractice at best. Malpractice on behalf of our very own FBI. I mean, think about it. We know that the FBI used unverified opposition research to get a FISA warrant. They never verified it. They never authenticated it. Heck, they never even tried to. Never even tried. I mean, this is like this is like me taking some info told to me by, I don't know, the National Enquirer or any other tabloid, and then regurgitating it to you on air as truth. That would never happen. But, you know, I have some integrity. The deep state folks, clearly, if this is all true, some do not. And by the way, regardless of how these dots connect, what is true is they never verified opposition research. And that in and of itself is a major problem. Because, you know, these are things that you don't do. I mean, you just don't do if you respect your country, if you respect the people in this country, and if you respect our Constitution. Have some respect. Okay, FBI, meanwhile, what it's especially concerning, or what is especially concerning and perhaps interesting about James Baker's testimony, this is the top lawyer, remember, for the FBI, besides the fact, of course, that he never verified anything, what is interesting is that he himself became personally involved in a way that, well, normally, you know what, he never would have. Let's go here to his testimony, and I'm going to quote for you. He says, at that point in time when I was at the FBI, most of the FISA, almost all the FISA applications did not go through me. They didn't go through you? So you got to wonder, I mean, why'd you get involved? Mr. Baker, why did you get involved with this one? If it was that sensitive, then shouldn't you have checked the sources? Was he trying to help take down the Trump campaign? Was he trying to help them spy on the campaign? He thought if he inserted himself? I'm just asking these questions because they deserve to be answered. All questions tonight deserve to be answered. This mystery of the deep state Spygate is unfolding in real time. Joining me right now, host of The Next Revolution, Mr. Steve Hilton. Steve, welcome back. Good to see you.
Hi, Trish.
So, you know, I'm going through all this testimony, and things don't add up. They don't add up because I would just like to think, and I know you're British and all that, but I'd like to think that our American FBI, if they're going to go out and get a FISA warrant to spy on someone, has actually, you know, dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's and made sure that whatever research coming their way was actually authenticated by the FBI and not just fed to them, spoon-fed by a political campaign.
That's right. But you know what's really important about what you said tonight was that we're going to now start to see the answers to the very deep suspicions that many people have had for a long time now, that it wasn't just a mistake, it wasn't just incompetence, it wasn't just poor practice, it was actually part of a plot. It was part of a plot by the national security bureaucracy, the deep state, under Obama, to prevent what they saw as the catastrophe of a Donald Trump presidency. And once that catastrophe, in their eyes, actually happened, to try and undermine it. Now, if you think about the last couple of years, think about the utterly flimsy basis on which the whole Russia collusion thing got going. And as a result of that, we've had endless investigations, FBI investigations, congressional investigations, and of course the massive weight of the Mueller investigation. Whereas on the other side, where there's far more suspicion, far more grounds for suspicion that there really was something bad going on, there's been practically nothing. And so I think that half the country who sees this going on will never think justice has been done until you have the equivalent investigation going on into all those deep state actors.
I'm telling you, they have to do it. It is the right thing to do for our society, for our country, because this is a slippery slope. Right, Steve? I mean, you start spying on one campaign and basically it leads straight into Banana Republic territory, right? You know, where the party in power is going to make sure that nobody else ever gets in power. And God forbid they do, they're going to make their life a living HELL and everybody winds up in jail. Which, you know, if you ask some on the left, that's exactly where they would like to see Donald Trump. I want to get to Don Jr. Being asked to testify before the Senate in just a moment. But first to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who's, Freudian slip here, joining House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler. And she's saying that, you know what, this country is in a constitutional crisis. This is after his committee voted to hold Attorney General Barr in contempt. Watch this, Steve.
This administration wants to have a constitutional crisis because they do not respect the oath of office that they take to protect and defend the Constitution, support the Constitution of the United States.
We've talked for a long time about approaching a constitutional crisis. We are now in it. We are now in a constitutional crisis.
A constitutional crisis of your own making, right? I mean, is this another talking point?
Oh, it's worse than that. It's so cynical. These people are total charlatans. It is not a constitutional crisis. It's a political stunt, and they know that. They go on and on about wanting the unredacted report. They've had the unredacted report for over a week now, but they haven't bothered to go and look at it. They haven't read it because it's not about that. Just with the Don Jr. thing, none of it is about the actual substance.
Okay, let me ask you about Don Jr.
Trying to. Well, go on. I mean, I was going to say, it's about trying to keep the focus on Russia and collusion and all the rest of it because they can't believe they lost in 2016 and they can't stand the fact that this president is being successful, especially on the economy.
Yeah, and maybe they can't stand the fact, don't worry, they can't stand the fact that, you know, the tables are turning and they may be the ones in trouble now. But let me ask you about the Don Jr. thing. So there's a lot of people that are upset in the Republican Party, conservatives, saying, why the heck is he being subpoenaed? Why is Burr calling him before the Senate Intelligence Committee? I wondered if maybe, and maybe I'm just being too optimistic on this, I'm hoping that some people want to do the right thing and they actually want answers and they want to figure out how all this went down. And, you know, there are a lot of people that you'd like to talk to. And I'm not saying this is going to point at collusion. I read the Mueller report. No collusion, all right? It would be nice if some of the Dems would. However, I wonder if Donald Trump's son could provide some context or any information that's worthwhile in this investigation, Steve, as they try and get to the bottom of what the heck happened.
Well, I would like that to be the case, but I don't think that's what they're looking at. I think that this is actually part of the whole kind of obsession with this story, and they just want to keep the whole thing going. I mean, the ostensible grounds that they're talking about is that there's a discrepancy between what Michael Cohen said in the Mueller report, as reported in the Mueller report, and what Don Jr. said about whether or not he told the president about the meeting. I mean, but the most important thing is that we know from the Mueller report that it wasn't collusion. That's clear. So why are we going on and on into these endless details?
I just wonder if, you know, we'll see what kind of tentacles are in which direction, but is there a chance that the so-called Russian lawyer who was looking for, you know, better rules regarding adoption, who maybe have promised more in the way of the Hillary Clinton emails, etc., was she somehow connected to the Democratic Party? I mean, did she have connections? I mean, these are just questions I'd be curious to know answers to. I don't entirely understand why a Republican Senate would bring him in like that. I should hope it's for the right reasons. But I got to tell you, Steve, I'm getting sick of it. I really feel like there's some bad people out there, bad people doing really bad things. And it's got to get called out.
That's exactly right, because the whole country is sick of it, other than the really partisan Democrats who still can't get over the 2016 election. And by the way, when you said earlier that the one party doing it to the other, the really important thing to remember about that is that when we're talking party here, is not actually Republican or Democrat, it's the establishment. It's the people who feel that they have the right to rule, irrespective of who actually wins elections, the deep state, the bureaucracy, people like Comey and Clapper and Brennan. They're this arrogant ruling elite who feel that their power's been taken away from them by the peasants who supported Donald Trump, and they want their power back. That is totally against everything America stands for. We've got to fight them and stop it.
I hear you. And, you know, Brennan's out there peddling this idea that Trump is an agent of Russia. You're talking about the former head of the CIA. It's just so despicable, because it's as though nobody has any code of ethics. And then holier than thou, you know, James Comey with his Instagram account. Don't get me started. He's better at Instagram than I am.
By the way,
that should tell you something.
One last thing, Trish. That, you know, the thing that really makes me angry about them is every single thing that they accuse the president and his supporters of doing, undermining democracy, the rule of law, and all the rest of it, they do that more than anyone. They're the ones who are undermining faith in our institutions by this ridiculous political stunt that they're still carrying on.
Well said. Steve, always good to see you, always good to catch up, and make sure you check out Steve. He hosts every single Sunday The Next Revolution, 9 p.m. Eastern. on Fox News Channel.